Hey everyone! Today we're talking about a super mysterious group from the ancient world called the Sea Peoples. Think of them like ancient pirates. Between about 1276 and 1178 BCE, they kept attacking towns and cities along the Mediterranean Sea, especially going after Egypt. Historians believe they played a huge part in a period of destruction called the Bronze Age collapse, which happened between 1250 and 1150 BCE. For a long time, people thought the Sea Peoples were the only reason everything fell apart. But now we know it was probably a mix of different problems. So who were these Sea Peoples? That's the big mystery. Most of what we know comes from Egyptian writings, and even those just talk about them in battle. For example, one stone carving says, "They came from the sea in their warships and none could stand against them." That's all we get. No real details. The Egyptians did give some names for the different groups that made up the Sea Peoples: the Shurdan, Sheklish, Luka, Tersha, and Akawasha. They didn't only attack Egypt, they also hit places like the Hittite Empire and other parts of the Mediterranean. Lots of experts have tried to guess where they were from. Maybe places like Troy, Italy, or Greece. But we really don't know. There are no writings from the Sea Peoples themselves. The name Sea Peoples is something a French historian named Gaston Maspero came up with in 1881 because ancient texts just said these groups came from the sea, or the islands, without saying exactly where. Three famous Egyptian pharaohs wrote about fighting the Sea Peoples: Ramesses II, his son Meremptah, and Ramesses III. They all claimed they beat the Sea Peoples, which is something pharaohs like to say, and their writings are the main sources we have. Ramesses II, also known as Ramesses the Great, was a strong and smart ruler. Early in his reign, he fought the Hittites to take back the city of Kadesh. Both sides said they won, but Ramses' version of the story is super detailed. In it, the Sea Peoples show up as fighters. Some were on the Hittite side, and some were even helping Egypt. He didn't explain who they were, which makes experts think people already knew about them back then. Ramesses also told the story of a sea battle in his second year as pharaoh. He tricked the Sea Peoples into thinking there was only a small Egyptian fleet near the Nile Delta. But when the Sea Peoples attacked, more Egyptian ships came in from the sides and sank their ships. He only mentions the Shurdan by name in this fight. Many of the Shurdan were captured and later worked for Ramesses as his personal guards. He made it sound like he completely beat the Sea Peoples, but that wasn't the end of it. His son, Meremptah, had to deal with them again. Around 1209 BCE, in the 5th year of his reign, the Sea Peoples teamed up with the Libyans to invade Egypt. Meremptah said they came from the seas to the north, and listed the Aquesh, Teresh, Luka, Shurdan, and Shekelesh. Nobody knows exactly where these groups were from. Meremptah took it seriously. He prayed, fasted, and asked the gods for advice. Then he led his army to a place called Payere, where they fought a huge battle. The Egyptians won big. They killed over 6,000 enemies and captured members of the Libyan royal family. These attackers didn't just want to steal stuff. They brought things like cooking pots and building tools, which shows they wanted to move in and live in Egypt. To remember this victory, Meremptah had the story carved into the temple walls at Karnak, and on something called the Meremptah stele, a big stone found in his temple at Thebes. The carving says that all of Egypt's enemies were beaten, and peace was restored. It even mentions Israel for the first time ever in history, not as a place, but as a group of people. Just like with the Sea Peoples, that one line has led to lots of questions. Just when people thought the Sea Peoples were finally gone, they showed up again. This time it was during the rule of Pharaoh Ramesses III, one of the last strong leaders of ancient Egypt. These sea raiders weren't done yet. They started with quick surprise attacks along Egypt's coast, just like they had done years before during Ramses II's time. Then they destroyed Kadesh, an important trading city. After that, they formed a big group and marched toward the Nile Delta, trying to invade Egypt again. But Ramesses III was ready. He knew the Sea Peoples were dangerous. Instead of facing them in a big open battle, he used smart tactics like ambushes. Egyptian archers hid along the coast, waiting. When the Sea People's ships came close, the archers fired a storm of arrows. After most of the crew was down, they shot flaming arrows to burn the ships. That stopped the attack from the sea. But the Sea Peoples still had fighters on land. Ramesses III kept using clever tactics, fast, sneaky attacks. The final big battle happened near the city of Xois in 1178 BCE. Egypt won again. Many Sea Peoples were either killed or captured. Some were forced to join the Egyptian army or were sold as slaves. Even though Egypt won, the war cost a lot of money. The country's treasury was almost empty. Things got so bad that the workers who built tombs in Set Mat, now Deir el Medina, weren't paid. So they went on strike. They stopped working until they got paid. This was actually the first recorded strike in history. After this defeat, the Sea Peoples disappeared from history. There are no records of them after 1178 BCE. Maybe some stayed in Egypt or joined other groups. But no one knows for sure. That's what makes the Sea Peoples so interesting. Even today, historians argue about who they really were and where they came from. Most of what we know comes from Egyptian writings and a few letters from the Hittites and Assyrians. But those don't explain much. The Egyptians never introduced the Sea Peoples like they were strangers. It's like everyone already knew who they were. That adds to the mystery. Some of these people had even worked for Egypt before, like as soldiers under Ramesses the Great. Ramesses III wrote that they suddenly appeared in huge numbers, bringing their families and everything they owned, like they were moving, not just attacking. But something like this had already happened 30 years earlier, during Pharaoh Ramesses' time. Also, the names of these groups had shown up in older records before. In Egyptian stories like the Tale of Wenamun, the Sea Peoples show up as familiar people living in the Mediterranean. People back then seemed to know them. But today we don't. We don't know where they came from, why they kept moving around, or what happened to them in the end. Some historians think we'll never know, and that's okay. Because sometimes, history leaves us with big questions. And the Sea Peoples are one of those fascinating mysteries. They scared powerful empires, challenged Egypt, and then disappeared. And even now, we're still left wondering, who were the Sea Peoples really?